I do support unemployment benefits for the 26 weeks that they're paid for. If you extend it beyond that, you do a disservice to these workers. You're causing them to become part of this perpetual unemployed group in our economy.
Congressional Budget Office estimates that extending benefits for the long-term unemployed would grow the economy by 0.2% and add 200,000 jobs. It would also keep thousands of Americans out of poverty. National Employment Law Project estimates that 1.7 million people were kept out of poverty through federal unemployment insurance just last year, including almost 500,000 children. And yet, due to Congress's failure to extend insurance for the long-term unemployed, 1.3 million Americans are slated to lose benefits just 3 days after Christmas, at a time when the long-term unemployment rate remains at near record highs. And the cost of extending the benefits, just a quarter of what many of America's wealthiest families have saved on their taxes since 2000 by exploiting a single tax loophole. We'll be talking about that later in the show.
It is genuinely an insane moment in American politics, and it is a broader thing where Washington has become resigned to a long-term unemployment crisis. It has become resigned to letting millions of people go into the roles of the long-term unemployed or the permanently jobless. When I saw your Rand Paul clip, one thing that I find so infuriating about that, aside from this sort of callousness towards the unemployed, the idea that you are doing them a disservice if they have enough money to feed their families or pay their rent for an extra month because of a spiritual hollowness that would come, I guess, from getting unemployment benefits. Besides that, oftentimes, because in order to qualify for unemployment, you have to actually be looking for work. The benefits are what keep people in the workforce instead of dropping out entirely.
That is exactly right. Just to be very clear, in case anyone doesn't understand the basic facts here, to qualify for unemployment insurance, you have to show that you are looking for work. You have to be pursuing actively. And right now, it's not like there are jobs falling off job trees, as we like to say here on the program.
Well, that is really the core here, right? So the argument that Rand Paul is gesturing towards, I think, is that what unemployment benefits do is they make it so you don't have to get a job because you're getting this great paycheck from the federal government that can not cover any kind of life any of us would ever consider comfortable. But what they actually do in a period like this one, where you have at least 3 people looking for every one open job, and more to the point, because unemployment is so regionally distributed in the areas where you have a lot of unemployed, you have many more than 3 people looking for a job, 5 people, 6 people, 8 people. We are helping people at a time when we cannot find jobs for them. This is not 1997 when labor markets are tight and people want to hire and there's some folks who just don't want to work for the pay. This is a time when Wall Street and, frankly, regulators in Washington and Congress helped crash the economy, threw tons of folks out of work, and now we are saying, you know what, at this point, it's your fault again.
The political economy of this is also really interesting. I remember, you've written a lot about the political challenge of, for instance, expanding health insurance in America. And it's often been the case that, the uninsured aren't a particularly potent constituency. They're not necessarily organized, even if you got 40 million of them at a given time. We're seeing a problem right now where the unemployed are just a completely politically powerless constituency. It genuinely seems like no one in Washington, aside from, I think, a core group of progressive Democrats, genuinely cares about their plight.
Right, and much of Washington, and this is something I've become very concerned about, is simply resigned to it. I mean, there are a lot of people who care, right? There are a lot of folks who want to do something, but because the thing they want to do, they can't get it through Congress or they can't get it through the regulatory structure, they're giving up and moving on to other issues. They're moving on to thinking about other big issues, important issues in many cases, but what it means for the unemployed is that at this point, even the people who want to help them, they don't have the stomach for it. The fight has gone on too long. They've become too frustrated and disillusioned. And that is when you get not just sort of long-term unemployment, but something economists call hysteresis, where people become, because they end up out of the workforce for so long, they lose skills, they lose social attachments that would help them get back into it later on. The very simplest way this works, right, is that when you are unemployed because you're unemployed, when an employer looks at your job application, and they've done studies sending out identical job applications, but with periods of unemployment on them, when an employer looks at your job application, sees you've been out of work for 4 months or 8 months or 2 years, they just pass you over. They don't even call you for the interview because they figure, well, there must be a reason, and there's somebody else who hasn't been unemployed, so I'm going to go to them.
There's
so they become
suspicion.
Yeah, it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle.
We're fighting a war of messaging right now, right? And we see the Republicans going so extreme and so hard, cutting unemployment insurance, even as, pretty soon we're going to vote on whether or not these tax extenders, which include things like research and development tax breaks for corporations, that will probably stay in while unemployment insurance is thrown out. But I'm concerned that people, kind of like Ezra was saying, are kind of resigned to this as the new normal. And we see very few people in the Democratic Party willing to say, not only should we not cut unemployment insurance, we should be growing it and extending it.
Well, said growth simply isn't producing enough jobs. This is a more severe, more urgent problem than inequality. Moreover, fixing it is necessary, but not sufficient to making real headway against inequality. What do you think is a defining challenge of our time?
Full employment. And that means something very specific. So there's a great book by Dean Baker and Jared Bernstein on this point, and that doesn't just mean more people have jobs. It means you get to the point where adding another job would actually not, or adding more demand to the economy would not create another job, but would create inflation. And what's important about
You're so far from that.
But what's important about trying to think about getting back to a tight labor market, and that really does have important policy questions around inflation. People lose when you go to a full employment equilibrium, and part of the folks who lose are folks who are very rich and own a lot of assets. And so we've got a political conversation where things like how strong the dollar will be, what inflation will be, have really been decided in favor of sort of the winners of the economy now and not in favor of folks sort of at the bottom. But the important thing about getting not just jobs back, but to a tight labor market is that is a moment at which workers have power again. And another way of, I think, restating the inequality argument, and it's an important argument, is that over the last 30 or 40 years, the top 1% has gotten an enormous amount of economic and political power, and workers have lost it. And what worries me sometimes about the way inequality gets talked about is you do need to bring down the gap between the top 1% and everybody else. But if you just did that and you didn't take care of the lack of power among workers, you actually wouldn't have solved the core problem.
I think we're starting to see, the unions come in and try to organize around these issues that have been very successful, like the fast food strikes, and painting this picture about, look, McDonald's is receiving over $1 billion in subsidies because the workers don't get paid enough to not be on public assistance. But I think we were talking before about tools and how the Fed is one of the few places where we can make a difference. Look, President Obama could do something for 2 million federal contract workers who, like work at the cafe at the Smithsonian right now, for example, who are making minimum wage. He could do an executive order for those 2 million federal employees and give them a raise, and he hasn't. And so that's something that doesn't have to go through Congress. So there are ways that we can address this problem that I totally agree with you. It's horrible. We need to do something. So I'd like to see more than just a speech out of the Obama administration. I'd like to see some actual action.
Inequality is a huge problem. I'm thrilled to see it at the fore of the economic agenda. And social mobility, declining social mobility, is a huge problem. But as you say, these are problems that somehow connect to the American story in a way we find intuitively morally offensive. And so politicians like to talk about them. And Paul Ryan gives speeches about declining social mobility, and hedge fund managers like
Ted Cruz was talking about inequality in a recent speech.
But the unemployed, as you said earlier, they are not a politically powerful group, and they do not affect, even morally, even intuitionally, people who are at the top. And so one of the things that really worries me about as we seem to be moving on from unemployment, and that's why I sort of wrote this piece, is that there is an easy politics towards talking about problems that are sort of long-term, they're morally offensive, that we can't solve right now, whereas a lot of Democrats, for instance, find the politics of talking about further stimulus to be counterproductive. But if you give up on that, the way we structure our thinking about our economic problems will matter when moments come that action can actually be taken.